Political landscape that will be decided by Canadians in just a matter of hours. Across the country, 71,000 polling stations will be set up. They'll be open for 12 hours as voters cast their ballots. Angelina King is here with what you need to know before you head to the polls.
Tomorrow, 300,000 people have signed up to do one job: make the voting process smooth. To do that, a voter information card isn't required, but it will speed things up and can be used as proof of address. All you need is your driver's license or another government-issued card with your photo, name, and address.
If you have that, you're good to go.
And if you don't,
then you need two pieces of identification. One has to have your name and address on it. The other just has to have your name.
Which can be in the form of a bank statement on your phone, credit card, or even a prescription pill bottle. An estimated 4.7 million Canadians voted in advance polls, nearly 30% more than the last federal election. Dougal Maudsley says it's hard to say whether that'll affect lineups on election day, but doesn't suspect wait times will be that long. He says legally your employer must ensure you have 3 hours to go vote at some point during the 12 hours the polls are open. Once you've voted, photos are encouraged, but be sure not to take any pictures or videos while inside the polling station, especially of your marked ballot.
Your ballot's secret, and there are really good reasons for why it's secret. So it's illegal to actually take a picture of your ballot and post it.
On the eve of the election, people we spoke with are all set to go to the polls tomorrow. So we asked them, why is it important to cast your ballot?
As I'm Indigenous and I want to execute my right to vote, you know, this was a long time coming for our people to have this right.
I vote for with my heart instead of trying to keep somebody else out, that kind of thing.
I think it's important to have our voice heard.
Yes, you want to make a difference. It takes people like one at a time to make a difference, so everyone should vote.
Polls are open from 9:30 in the morning until 9:30 at night. Angelina King, CBC News, Toronto.
Meanwhile, the party leaders made their final push for votes. For the Liberal, Conservative, NDP and Green parties, that meant campaigning in BC. Evan Dyer explains why the province has become a key battleground.
Liberals in British Columbia, we love the rain.
BC voters are used to elections being decided in the east before their votes are even counted. Not this time.
We need to get out over the rest of today, be super active tomorrow with our neighbors, with our friends, as volunteers, right across the Lower Mainland, right across British Columbia, right across the country.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Vancouver.
The same calculations brought the Conservatives to the Lower Mainland to warn that a vote for the Liberals will empower New Democrats.
Now, in the dying days of this campaign, Trudeau is again leaving the door open to a coalition government with the NDP. Dealing away your hard-earned tax dollars to the NDP.
As the campaigns wind down, no party has even secured a third of voter intentions, far short of what's traditionally needed for a majority. There's been some growth for the NDP, but other than that, little movement in the numbers. And what makes BC so attractive to the parties is its volatility, with many races, four-way toss-ups, including the Greens.
You can win ridings in the low 30s there, so it's unique that way, and I think particularly in this race, because it's not just a three-way vote split as we've seen in a lot of past Canadian federal elections.
Just as the Liberals and Conservatives trade charges of deception on the national stage, the Greens and New Democrats have fought their own skirmishes with each other.
The NDP continue to lie about the Greens. It's one of the hardest things I've ever had to endure because I thought I had a good relationship with Jagmeet Singh.
Yes. Oh my goodness!
Both Singh and May are expected to hang on to their own seats, which are relatively safe by BC standards. A riding that's anything but safe is Vancouver-Granville, where former Liberal Cabinet Minister Jody Wilson-Raybould is running as an independent in a tight four-way race. Evan Dyer, CBC News, Ottawa.
Our election night special will have all the results and analysis. Be sure to join us tomorrow night starting at 6:30 p.m. Eastern on CBC TV and CBC News Network. You can also watch on GEM, cbcnews.ca, and our CBC News app. A violent attempted kidnapping in broad daylight in Etobicoke this afternoon has left one man in serious condition.
Callers indicated that a man was being beaten by a group of other men, and that man had been forced into a car. Now, we had officers that happened to be close by that responded to this call quickly. They got on scene and they saw the car, they saw 4 suspects, and they saw a man in the back of a car with injuries.
It happened near Renforth Drive and Tabard Gate around 2:30 p.m. Police spotted the suspects in a vehicle and the pursuit ensued. The suspects ditched the car 12 kilometers away on Legion Road with the victim still inside. The man was rushed to a hospital with multiple stab wounds.
I saw the car that was involved in what looked like a crime. There was a lot of blood spatter. The seat was full, the outside of the car, and yeah, we were a little concerned.
3 people were taken into custody and police are looking for a 4th. The suspect is considered armed and dangerous. Anyone who may have information or sees the suspect is asked not to approach and to contact police. And police have identified the victim in a deadly shooting in Etobicoke last night. It happened near a low-rise community housing complex in the area of the Queensway and Windermere at around 7:45 p.m. Police found 36-year-old Tresor Kaninga in a car without vital signs and suffering from gunshot wounds. He was rushed to hospital in life-threatening condition where he later died. Police don't know the motive behind the incident but say there is no evidence to suggest it was a targeted shooting. No suspect information has been released. Family, friends, and community members gathered today in memory of Matthew Drever, the 16-year-old who was struck and killed by an SUV earlier this week. The driver who hit him still on the loose. A public service was held at the Jarrett Funeral Home in Scarborough to mourn the teen, who police say was intentionally struck by a vehicle. It happened in the Woodbine and O'Connor Drive area on Monday. Drever was pronounced dead in hospital. His family has asked those responsible to turn themselves in. Police say they are searching for 2 suspects. A devastating snowstorm in Winnipeg is leaving the community with a huge cleanup job, and now the City of Toronto is lending a hand.
We've been through that with our own ice storm that we had not too long ago, and as a result we've got the experience in helping to clean up a devastating situation. If some part of Canada is hurting, then that means Toronto is hurting and that we want to help out.
25 urban forestry staff people from Toronto left today for Winnipeg, along with 13 vehicles, including chipper and bucket trucks. Winnipeg was slammed with a fall storm that battered the city for 2 days earlier this month, and the city is still recovering. Toronto crews are expected to return November 8th. Well, when the Raptors tip off on a new season Tuesday, it will be with the certainty of having Pascal Siakam in their lineup for a few more years. Reports this weekend suggest the 25-year-old was offered a huge contract extension. But the deal isn't quite official yet, which is probably why our Greg Ross had a hard time tracking him down at practice today.
Pascal Siakam managed to avoid the cameras at practice a day after reports surfaced that he is on the verge of signing a new contract extension worth $130 million over 4 years. Coach Nick Nurse says even he couldn't get the scoop from Siakam today.
I just asked him if he had a good weekend this week, and he said, yeah, very good.
Pascal daring him to shoot.
If the reports are accurate, Siakam will receive the maximum amount of money a player with his experience is eligible to earn, which would not be a surprise to Nurse.
First day of practice, his first year here, I said, that's a max player if I ever saw one. I love what he says about it. He goes, this is who I thought I was going to be. I'm not, you know, why you guys all acting so surprised?
Up top, Pascal!
This contract would be a clear indication the Raptors are ready for Siakam to take over as the team's new star player. A role that became vacant with the departure of Kawhi Leonard in the offseason.
Obviously, he's going to have a bigger load, and we're going to count on him, for consistency and the amount of shots he's going to get. But that doesn't mean that, it's all on him by any means.
Pascal Siakam, is he the new superstar on this team? I think so. I mean, he definitely showed it last year, being the most improved player. That doesn't come lightly.
He's very young and he's only going to get better. And
is he ready, though? Do you think Siakam is ready to move into that role as the go-to guy on the Raptors?
I'm not sure. We're going to have to see.
But most fans aren't looking that far ahead. Right now, the focus is on Tuesday's season opener, when players receive their championship rings and a banner is raised to the Raptors at Scotiabank Arena.
There'll be a party on Tuesday?
Oh, hell yeah.
Well, we've been waiting all summer for it.
Non-stop partying.
Yeah.
We'll take it.
The Raptors will host the New Orleans Pelicans Tuesday night. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Tens of thousands swarmed the streets this morning to run in the 30th annual Toronto Waterfront Marathon.
There are hundreds of people here, 700 plus, I think, from Mexico, 1,000 almost from the United States, and millions of dollars being raised for charities here in Toronto.
More than 26,000 people from over 70 countries took part in the annual run, raising more than $3.5 million for 190 charities. And the top finishing Canadians winning the big ticket to the Olympics.
I feel like I've had this performance in me for years, and it finally came together when it mattered the most. I'm overwhelmed. Yeah, I feel amazing.
I came around that corner and I saw that time and I could not believe that. I put so much work into this, so just to like soak up the moment, this is everything I've ever dreamed of.
The top two Canadian runners will be making their way to Tokyo 2020 in August. The overall winner of the marathon was Kenyan Philemon Rono, who set a new marathon record. Let's check in with Marta now for a look at our forecast voting day tomorrow. Marta, hopefully the weather will cooperate too.
Well, I think it will. Let's take a quick look at the weather systems across the country. I don't want to give you too much, but this low developing over Wyoming is going to bring some unsettled conditions. But for Monday, it's looking nice in through southern Ontario. Overnight, 8 degrees, which for this time of year should be about 5, so above. And then in through the afternoon, it's going to be 15. And as I mentioned, it's above seasonal, which for this time of year is about 12. So a nice day, that sun and cloud icon there. And seasonably mild high temperatures are going to persist through the week. However, there is a chance for that rain. I'll tell you a little bit later. Let's take a look at the GTA. Monday, 15 in Toronto, Guelph 16, Hamilton 17, and some areas like Niagara could see 20-degree weather, so probably the last time this season. So that high pressure area really situated over Ontario, but then there's this Wyoming low that's coming, and it's going to bring some unsettled conditions. Now, looking at Tuesday, that's when it's going to rain. Toronto 16 degrees, 14 in Guelph, and that rain icon throughout. But I'll have a little bit more for you about that Wyoming low a little bit later in the show and what it means a little later in the week for Toronto.
Okay, good. We'll see you in a bit. Thanks, Marta. Last night, a benefit concert was held at Roy Thompson Hall in honor of Gord Downie, a recreation of the memorable concert of 2016 that was led by Downie on the story of Chani Wenjack, a 12-year-old Ojibwe boy who died while escaping a residential school in 1966. His brother Mike Downie spoke at the event about working towards reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples.
Reconciliation is a really hard thing to sort of wrap your head around. I think it's different for everybody. And I'll say that I believe it requires all Canadians to be a part of it to make it work. I think we all have to find our way into it.
Taking place 2 years after Gord Downie's death, the concert featured the original Secret Path Band, surprise guests, and dancers. Proceeds from yesterday's show will go to the Gord Downie and Chani Wenjack Fund to promote reconciliation. As we head to break, here's part of that concert.
I am a stranger to no one I meet. I navigate the mud. I walk up on the path, jump into the right, and then I jump to the left on a secret path, the one that nobody
A Toronto group aimed to show support for protesters in Hong Kong today.
Fight for freedom! Read enough will not be silenced! Read enough will not be silenced!
The march was organized by Torontonians Stand with Hong Kong, and they're trying to raise awareness about the conflict overseas, saying the issue deserves more attention from our federal leaders. And in Hong Kong, after 2 weeks of relative calm, violence returned today to Hong Kong's anti-government protests. It began peacefully. Protest leaders had urged a large turnout. Authorities had already declared it illegal. When violence erupted, police fired tear gas and water cannon. Many hit with the water-developed coughs. Sparking suspicion, an irritant was added. Protesters threw Molotov cocktails and, according to police, left hundreds of shops trashed. Subway stops and a police station were also targeted. Donald Trump buckling under pressure and reversing a decision is pretty significant in itself. He did that last night when he revoked plans to hold next year's G7 summit at one of his own resorts. But what's even more jaw-dropping is how senior members of his administration are justifying that decision. Paul Hunter is in Washington with some of those concerns.
It's all about this place, Donald Trump's very own golf resort in Florida, Trump National Doral, chosen by Trump last week to host next year's G7 summit, an event sure to fill every room, bring untold publicity to his property, and in so doing, say critics, make Trump a ton of money, though Trump himself said he would not profit.
He wanted to put on a show. He wanted to take care of folks.
Today, Trump's acting chief of staff took on Trump's critics, who were so vociferous on this that late yesterday, under pressure, Trump reversed his decision, tweeting, "The G7 will be elsewhere instead," based on both media and Democrat crazed and irrational hostility. For those who suggested Trump was using the power of the office for his own personal reward, said Mulvaney today,
he was honestly surprised at the level of pushback. At the end of the day, he still considers himself to be in the hospitality business, and he saw an opportunity to take the biggest leaders from around the world, and he wanted to put on the absolute best show, the best visit that he possibly could. And he was
on that description of how Trump sees himself, Fox News host Chris Wallace jumped.
I just have to pick up. You say he considers himself in the hospitality business. He's the president of the United States.
Yeah, but that's his background. It's like
Mulvaney clarified, saying Trump used to be in the business. All of it fuel for critics who say Trump forever seems to see little wrong in whatever he does as president, said Democrats on Doral Friday.
If he were a local government official, he'd be in prison for doing that.
Meanwhile, back on Fox News,
does he understand? Forget the media, and does he understand that it looked lousy?
Well, I think he knows. He thinks that people think it looks lousy.
But as Trump himself heard at a rally last week, as the G7 story was making headlines, plenty of those who voted for him still back him and are still set to vote Trump again. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Washington.
Position the chest clip at the right place, which is at armpit level. And if you can't pinch anything, then it's good.
Coming up, we stop by a car seat clinic. Why Toronto police say stopping by if you're a new parent is a good idea. Next. Well, Toronto police recently did a random spot check on car seats and found more than 80% of the car seats failed inspection. And police encouraged more parents and parents-to-be to attend a car seat clinic. We stopped by too.
We're going to put these over the shoulders, and these come up over the hips.
Most of our friends to have babies, so I've done this a lot before, but as I say, it feels very different when you're preparing for your own. The stakes are much higher.
Like that, and then get the slack out like that.
They were often just looking for it to get a little bit tighter. They thought they'd done it correctly, but what ends up happening is they learn so much more than they even knew that they were supposed to ever know. And it's all about just reading the manual and getting really good advice from a technician or an event like this so that they can get their children safely secured in the vehicle.
So this is good because we get more practice doing this. So you can put that right in on that clip there.
The biggest concern is the safety of the child. So if there is a collision, sometimes even a minor collision, the child isn't properly restrained, there can be serious injuries that can affect. Now there are legal consequences, but we're not as concerned about those on a regular basis because it's the risk of a fine or some demerit points isn't as big as the risk of a child being injured or potentially killed in a collision.
If you've got a
real treat today, warmer than usual fall temperatures. Torontonians certainly taking advantage of the weather by the lake. But a warm-up is giving way to rain, which is something that Marta has been warning us about. So let's check in and find out exactly when that's coming, Marta.
Well, it's not coming tomorrow. Great. It will come on Tuesday, though, but only in the morning. It's just a brief rain overnight Monday into Tuesday. This is what's causing it. It's a Wyoming low, and it's bringing some of those unsettled conditions in through parts of the GTA. And you can see it's creeping closer by Monday and Monday evening into Tuesday. So northwestern Ontario, that's going to see lots of that rainfall and heavy winds and lots of heavy rainfall. But for Toronto, 15 degrees for Monday. So again, above seasonal for this time of year, which is about 12. So it's a nice treat. And the GTA getting treated to nice weather as well. Look at that. Guelph 16, Hamilton 17, as I mentioned earlier, 20-degree weather in Niagara. So that's a nice little treat as well. But there is that Wyoming low, and it's bringing the heavy rainfall and strong winds to the shores of Lake Superior. And the strong winds, and when I say strong winds, I mean gusts of up to 80 kilometers or more per hour. So that's where the strongest wind gusts are going to be along the lake shores. And it's not going to really so much impact Toronto, but the rainfall will. So take a look at that front as it's slicing through. You can see Monday into Tuesday, and then by Tuesday afternoon, it's actually going to be in eastern Ontario. So parts of Ottawa and Kingston could see some of that rainfall. But Tuesday, I mean, the rain icon is there. As I mentioned, Monday overnight into Tuesday, that's where you're going to see that accumulation. And you can't really tell on this map here, but there is going to be more of that rain in through southern Ontario for the morning hours. But in through the evening, that's where it's going to head into Ottawa and parts there. Just a quick look at the 3-day forecast for Toronto, Hamilton, Barrie, and Oshawa. Again, you see the rain icon on Tuesday.
Okay, thanks a lot, Marta. And that's our show for you tonight. Thanks for watching. Reminder, you can tune into our federal election coverage starting at 5:30 a.m. on Metro Morning. As well, polls are open at 9:30 a.m. The weather's going to be pretty good, so you have no excuses. Have a great night, everyone.